and then the director calls action. I've heard that sequence so many times, like it's become this Pavlovian magic spell for me. Rolling, speed, marker, set, and action. Something happens to me, I can't even help it. My attention narrows, and everything else in the world, anything else that might be bothering me or might grab my attention, it all goes away, and I just there. And that feeling, that is what I love. Like, that to me is creativity, and that's the biggest reason I'm so grateful that I get to be an actor. So there's these two powerful feelings. There's getting attention and paying attention. Of course, in the last decade or so, new technology has allowed more and more people to have this powerful feeling of getting attention for any kind of creative expression, not just acting. It could be writing or photography or drawing or music, everything. The channels of distribution have been democratized, and that's a good thing. But I do think there's an unintended consequence for anybody on the planet with an urge to be creative, myself included, because I'm not immune to this. I think that our creativity is becoming more and more of a means to an end. And that end is to get attention. And so I feel compelled to speak up because, in my experience, the more I go after that powerful feeling of paying attention, the happier I am. But the more I go after the powerful feeling of getting attention, the unhappier I am. And thanks. So this is something that goes way back for me. I think the first time I can remember using my acting to get attention, I was 8 years old at summer camp. And I've been going on auditions for about a year by then, and I've been lucky to get some small parts on TV shows and commercials, and I bragged about it a lot that summer at camp. And at first, it worked. The other kids gave me a bunch of extra attention because I had been on Family Ties. That's a picture of me on Family Ties, right. Then the tide turned. I think I took it too far with the bragging, and then the other kids started to make fun of me. Like, I remember there was this one girl I had a crush on, Rocky. Her name was Rachel, but she went by Rocky. And she was beautiful, and she could sing, and I was smitten with her, and I was standing there bragging. And she turned to me and she called me a show-off, which I 100% deserved. But, you know, it really hurt. And ever since that summer, I've had a certain hesitance to seek attention for my acting. And sometimes, you know, people would ask me, they'd be like, well, wait a minute, if you don't like the attention, then why are you an actor? And I'd be like, because that's not what acting's about, man, it's about the art. And they'd be like, okay, dude. And then Twitter came out, and I got totally hooked on it, just like everybody else, which made me into a complete hypocrite, because at that point, I was absolutely using my acting to get attention. I mean, what, did I think I was just getting all these followers because of my brilliant tweets? I actually did think that. I was like, you know, they don't just like me because they saw me in Batman. They like what I have to say. I've got a way with words. You know. And then in no time at all, it started having an impact on my dearly beloved creative process. It still does. I try not to let it. But, you know, I'll be sitting there like reading a script. And instead of thinking, okay, how can I personally identify with this character? Or how is the audience going to relate to this story? I'm like, what are people going to say about this movie on Twitter? And what will I say back that'll be good and snarky enough to get a lot of retweets, but not too harsh, because people love to get offended, and I don't want to get canceled. These are the thoughts that enter my mind while I'm like, supposed to be reading a script, trying to, you know, be an artist. And I'm not here to tell you that technology is the enemy of creativity. I don't think that. I think tech is just a tool. It has the potential to foster unprecedented human creativity. Like, I even started an online community called Hit Record, where people all over the world collaborate on all kinds of creative projects. So I don't think that social media or smartphones or any technology is problematic in and of itself. But If we're going to talk about the perils of creativity becoming a means to get attention, then we have to talk about the attention-driven business model of today's big social media companies. Right? Okay. So this will be familiar territory for some of you, but it's a really relevant question here. How does a social media platform like, for example, Instagram, make money? It's not selling a photo sharing service. That part's free. So what is it selling? It's selling attention. It's selling the attention of its users to advertisers. And there's a lot of discussion right now about how much attention we're all giving to things like Instagram. But my question is, how is Instagram getting so much attention? We get it for them. Anytime somebody posts on Instagram, they get a certain amount of attention from their followers, whether they have a few followers or a few million followers. And the more attention you're able to get, the more attention Instagram is able to sell. So it's in Instagram's interest for you to get as much attention as possible. And so it trains you to want that attention, to crave it, to feel stressed out when you're not getting enough of it. Instagram gets its users addicted to the powerful feeling of getting attention. And I know we all joke like, oh my God, I'm so addicted to my phone, but this is a real addiction. There's a whole science to it. If you're curious, I recommend the work of Jaron Lanier, Tristan Harris, Nir Eyal. But here's what I can tell you. Being addicted to getting attention, it's just like being addicted to anything else. It's never enough. You start out and you're thinking, well, if only I had 1,000 followers, that would feel amazing. But then you're like, well, once I get to 10,000 followers, and once I get to 100, once I get to 1 million followers, then I'll feel amazing. So I have 4.2 million followers on Twitter. It's never made me feel amazing. I'm not going to tell you how many I have on Instagram because I feel genuine shame about how low the number is because I joined Instagram after Batman came out. And I search other actors and I see that their number is higher than mine, and it makes me feel terrible about myself because the follower count makes everybody feel terrible about themselves. That feeling of inadequacy is what drives you to post so you can get more attention, and that attention that you get is what these companies sell. That's how they make their money. So there is no amount of attention you can get where you feel like you've arrived and you're like, ah, I'm good now. And of course, there are a lot of actors, who are a lot more famous than I am, have more followers than I do, but I bet you they would tell you the same thing. If your creativity is driven by a desire to get attention, you're never going to be creatively fulfilled. But I do have some good news. There's this other powerful feeling, something else you can do with your attention besides letting a giant tech company control it and sell it. This is that feeling I was talking about, why I love acting so much. It's being able to pay attention to just one thing. Turns out there's actually some science behind this too. Psychologists and neuroscientists, they study a phenomenon they call flow, which is this thing that happens in the human brain when someone pays attention to just one thing, like something creative, and manages not to get distracted by anything else. And some say the more regularly you do this, the happier you'll be. Now, I'm not a psychologist or a neuroscientist, but I can tell you for me, that is very true. But it's not always easy. It's hard to really pay attention like this. It takes practice. Everybody does it their own way. But if there's one thing I can share that I think helps me focus and really pay attention, is this. I try not to see other creative people as my competitors. I try to find collaborators. Like, if I'm acting in a scene, if I start seeing the other actors as my competitors, and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna get more attention than I am. People are gonna be talking about their performance more than my performance. Like, I've lost my focus. And by the way, I'm probably gonna suck in that scene. But when I see the other actors as collaborators, then it becomes almost easy to focus because I'm just paying attention to them. I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I react to what they're doing, they react to what I'm doing, and we can kind of keep each other in it together. But I don't want you to think there's only actors on a set that can collaborate in this way. I could be in whatever kind of creative situation. It could be professional, it could be just for fun. I could be collaborating with people I'm not even in the same room with. In fact, some of my favorite things I've ever made, I made with people that I never physically met. And by the way, this, to me, is the beauty of the internet. If we could just stop competing for attention, then the internet becomes a great place to find collaborators. And once I'm collaborating with other people, whether they're on set or online, wherever, that makes it so much easier for me to find that flow, because we're all just paying attention to the one thing that we're making together. And I feel like I'm part of something larger than myself, and we all sort of shield each other from anything else that might otherwise grab our attention, and we can all just be there. At least that's what works for me. Sometimes. Sometimes. It doesn't always work. Sometimes I still totally get wrapped up in that addictive cycle of wanting to get attention. I mean, like, even right now, can I honestly say there's not some part of me here who's like, hey, everybody, look at me, I'm giving a TED Talk. There's, you know, some part. But I can honestly say that this whole creative process of writing and giving this talk, it's been a huge opportunity for me to focus and really pay attention to something I care a lot about. So regardless of how much attention I do or don't get as a result, I'm happy I did it. And I'm grateful to all of you for letting me. So thank you, that's it. You can give your attention to someone else now. Thanks again.
So in college, I was a government major, which means I had to write a lot of papers. Now, when a normal student writes a paper, they might spread the work out a little like this. So, you know, you get started maybe a little slowly, but you get enough done in the first week that with some heavier days later on, everything gets done and things stay civil. And I would want to do that like that. That would be the plan. I would have it all ready to go, but then actually the paper would come along, and then I would kind of do this. And that would happen every single paper. But then came my 90-page senior thesis, a paper you're supposed to spend a year on. And I knew for a paper like that, my normal workflow was not an option. It was way too big a project. So I planned things out, and I decided it kind of had to go something like this. This is how the year would go. So I'd start, workflow was not an option, it was way too big a project. So I planned things out, and I decided it kind of had to go something like this. This is how the year would go. So I'd start off light, and I'd bump it up in the middle months, and then at the end, I would kick it up into high gear. It's just like a little staircase. How hard could it be to just walk up the stairs? No big deal, right? But then, funniest thing happened. Those first few months, they came and went, and I couldn't quite do stuff. So we had an awesome new revised plan. But then those middle months actually went by, and I didn't really write words. And so we were here. And then 2 months turned into 1 month, which turned into 2 weeks. And one day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word. And so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not 1 but 2 all-nighters. Humans are not supposed to pull 2 all-nighters. Sprinted across campus, dove in slow motion, and got it in just at the deadline. I thought that was the end of everything. But a week later, I get a call, and it's the school. And they say, is this Tim Urban? And I say, yeah. And they say, we need to talk about your thesis. And I say, okay. And they say, it's the best one we've ever seen. That did not happen. Yeah? And they say, we need to talk. And when like that, that would be the plan. Now, when a normal student writes a paper, they might spread the work out a little like this. So, you get started maybe a little slowly, but you get enough done in the first week that with some heavier days later on, everything gets done and things stay civil. And I would want to do that like that. That would be the plan. I would have it all ready to go, but then actually the paper would come along, and then I would kind of do this. And that would happen every single paper. But then came my 90-page senior thesis, a paper you're supposed to spend a year on. I knew for a paper like that, my normal workflow was not an option. It was way too big a project. So I planned things out, and I decided it kind of had to go something like this. This is how the year would go. So I'd start off light, and I'd bump it up in the middle months. And then at the end, I would kick it up into high gear. It's just like a little staircase. How hard could it be to just walk up the stairs? No big deal, right? But then, funniest thing happened. Those first few months, they came and went, and I couldn't quite do stuff. So we had an awesome new revised plan. But then those middle months actually went by, and I didn't really write words. And so we were here. And then 2 months turned into 1 month, which turned into 2 weeks. And one day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word. And so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not 1 but 2 all-nighters. Humans are not supposed to pull 2 all-nighters. Sprinted across campus, dove in slow motion, and got it in just at the deadline. I thought that was the end of everything. But a week later, I get a call, and it's the school. And they say, is this Tim Urban? And I say, yeah. And they say, we need to talk about your thesis. And I say, okay. And they say, it's the best one we've ever seen. That did not happen. It was a very, very bad thesis. I just wanted to enjoy that one moment when all of you thought, this guy is amazing. No, it was very, very bad. Anyway, today I'm a writer, blogger guy. I write the blog Wait, But Why? And a couple of years ago, I decided to write about procrastination. My behavior has always perplexed the non-procrastinators around me, and I wanted to explain to the non-procrastinators of the world what goes on in the heads of procrastinators and why we are the way we are. Now, I had a hypothesis that the brains of procrastinators were actually different than the brains of other people. And to test this, I found an MRI lab that actually let me scan both my brain and the brain of a proven non-procrastinator, so I could compare them, and I actually brought them here to show you today, and I want you to take a look carefully to see if you can notice a difference. And I know that if you're not a trained brain expert, it's not that obvious, but just take a look, okay? So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain. There is a difference. Both brains have a rational decision maker in them, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. Now, what does this mean for the procrastinator? Well, it means everything's fine until this happens. So the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel and he says, actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan-Tanya Harding scandal, because I just remembered that happened. Then we're going to go over to the fridge. We're going to see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago. After that, we're going to go on a YouTube spiral that starts with videos of Richard Feynman talking about magnets. We're going to hire brains have a rational brain. So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain. There is a difference. Both brains have a rational decision maker in them, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. Now, what does this mean for the procrastinator? Well, it means everything's fine until this happens. So the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel and he says, actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan-Tanya Harding scandal, because I just remembered that happened. Then we're gonna go over to the fridge, we're gonna see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago. After that, we're gonna go on a YouTube spiral that starts with videos of Richard Feynman talking about magnets and ends much, much later with us watching interviews with Justin Bieber's mom. All of that's gonna take a while, so we're not gonna really have room on the schedule for any work today, sorry. Now, what is going on here? The instant gratification monkey does not seem like a guy you want behind the wheel. He lives entirely in the present moment. He has no memory of the past, no knowledge of the future, and he only cares about two things: easy and fun. Now, in the animal world, that works fine. If you're a dog and you spend your whole life doing nothing other than easy and fun things, you're a huge success. And to the monkey, humans are just another animal species. He has to keep well slept, well fed, and propagating into the next generation, which in tribal times might have worked okay. But if you haven't noticed, now we're not in tribal times. We're in an advanced civilization, and the monkey does not know what that is, which is why we have another guy in our brain, the rational decision maker, who gives us the ability to do things no other animal can do. We can visualize the future. We can see the big picture. We can make long-term plans, and he wants to take all of that into account, and he wants to just have us do whatever makes sense to be doing right now. Now, sometimes it makes sense to be doing things that are easy and fun, like when you're having dinner, or going to bed, or enjoying well-earned leisure time. That's why there's an overlap. Sometimes they agree. But other times, it makes much more sense to be doing things that are harder and less pleasant for the sake of the big picture, and that's when we have a conflict. And for the procrastinator, that conflict tends to end a certain way every time, leaving him spending a lot of time in this orange zone, an easy and fun place that's entirely out of the make sense circle. I call it the dark playground. Now, the dark playground is a place that all of you procrastinators out there know very well. It's where leisure activities happen at times when leisure activities are not supposed to be happening. The fun you have in the dark playground isn't actually fun because it's completely unearned, and the air is filled with guilt, dread, anxiety, self-hatred, all those good procrastinator feelings. And the question is, in this situation, with the monkey behind the wheel, how does the procrastinator ever get himself over here to this blue zone? A less pleasant place, but where really important things happen. Well, turns out that the procrastinator has a guardian angel, someone who's always looking down on him and watching over him in his darkest moments, someone called the panic monster. Now, the panic monster is dormant most of the time, but he suddenly wakes up anytime a deadline gets too close or there's danger of public embarrassment, a career disaster, or some other scary consequence. And importantly, he's the only thing that the monkey is terrified of. Now, he became very relevant in my life pretty recently because the people of TED reached out to me about 6 months ago and invited me to do a TED Talk. Now, of course, I said yes. It's always been a dream of mine to have done a TED Talk in the past. But in the middle of all this excitement, the rational decision maker seemed to have something else in his mind. He was saying, are we clear on what we just accepted? Do we get what's going to be now happening one day in the future? We need to sit down and work on this right now. And the monkey said, totally agree, but also let's just open Google Earth and let's zoom into the bottom of India, like 200 feet above the ground, and we're gonna scroll up for 2.5 hours till we get to the top of the country so we can get a better feel for India. So that's what we did that day. as 6 months turned into 4, and then 2, and then 1, the people of TED decided to release the speakers. And I opened up the website, and there was my face staring right back at me, and guess who woke up? So the panic monster starts losing his mind, and a few seconds later, the whole system's in mayhem. And the monkey, who, remember, he's terrified of the panic monster, boom, he's up the tree. And finally, the rational decision maker can take the wheel, and I can start working on the talk. Now, the panic monster explains all kinds of pretty insane procrastinated behavior, like how someone like me could spend 2 weeks unable to start the opening sentence of a paper, and then miraculously find the unbelievable work ethic to stay up all night and write 8 pages. And this entire situation with the 3 characters, this is the procrastinator's system. It's not pretty, but in the end, it works. And this is what I decided to write about on the blog just a couple years ago. Now, when I did, I was amazed by the response. Literally thousands of emails came in from all different kinds of people, from all over the world, doing all different kinds of things. These were people who were nurses and bankers and painters and engineers and lots of PhD students. And they were all writing saying the same thing. I have this problem too. But what struck me was the contrast between the light tone of the post and the heaviness of these emails. These people were writing with intense frustration about what procrastination had done to their lives, about what this monkey had done to them. And I thought about this, and I said, if the procrastinator system works, then what's going on? Why are all these people in such a dark place? Well, turns out that there's 2 kinds of procrastination. Everything I've talked about today, the examples I've given, they all have deadlines. And when there's deadlines, the effects of procrastination are contained to the short term because the panic monster gets involved. But there's a second kind of procrastination that happens in situations when there is no deadline. So if you want to have a career where you want to be a self-starter, something in the arts, something entrepreneurial, there's no deadlines on those things at first, because nothing's happening at first, not until you've gone out and done the hard work to get some momentum, to get things going. There's also all kinds of important things outside of your career that don't involve any deadlines, like seeing your family, or exercising and taking care of your health, working on your relationship, or getting out of a relationship that isn't working. Now, if the procrastinator's only mechanism of doing these hard things is the panic monster, that's a problem, because in all of these non-deadline situations, the panic monster doesn't show up. He has nothing to wake up for. So the effects of procrastination, they're not contained. They just extend outward forever. And it's this long-term kind of procrastination that's much less visible and much less talked about than the funnier, short-term, deadline-based kind. It's usually suffered quietly and privately. And it can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness and regrets. And I thought, that's why these people are emailing, and that's why they're in such a bad place. It's not that they're cramming for some project. It's that long-term procrastination has made them feel like a spectator at times in their own lives. The frustration was not that they couldn't achieve their dreams, it's that they weren't even able to start chasing them. So I read these emails, and I had a little bit of an epiphany that I don't think non-procrastinators exist. That's right, I think all of you are procrastinators. Now, you might not all be a mess, like some of us. And some of you may have a healthy relationship with deadlines. But remember, the monkey's sneakiest trick is when the deadlines aren't there. Now, I want to show you one last thing. I call this a life calendar. That's 1 box for every week of a 90-year life. That's not that many boxes, especially since we've already used a bunch of those. So I think we need to all take a long, hard look at that calendar. And we need to think about what we're really procrastinating on, because everyone is procrastinating on something in life. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey. That's a job for all of us. And because there's not that many boxes on there, it's a job that should probably start today. Well, maybe not today, but sometime soon. Thank you.
Elon, hey, welcome back to TED. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, in the next half hour or so, we're going to spend some time exploring your vision for what an exciting future might look like, which I guess makes the first question a little ironic. Why are you boring?
Yeah, I ask myself that frequently. We're trying to dig a hole under LA, and this is to create the beginning of what will hopefully be a 3D network of tunnels to alleviate congestion. So, I mean, right now, I think one of the most soul-destroying things is traffic. It affects people in every part of the world. It takes away so much of your life, and it's horrible. It's particularly horrible in LA. And
I think you've brought with you the first visualization that's been shown of this. Can I show this?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first time, we've just to sort of show what we're talking about. So there are a couple of key things that are important in having a 3D tunnel network. First of all, you have to be able to integrate the entrance and exit of the tunnel seamlessly into the fabric of the city. So by having an elevator, sort of a car skate that's on an elevator, you can integrate the entrance and exits to the tunnel network just by using 2 parking spaces. And then the car gets on a skate. There's no speed limit here, so we're designing this to be able to operate at 200 kilometers an hour, about 200 kilometers an hour, or about 130 miles per hour. So you should be able to get from, say, Westwood to LAX in 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes.
So possibly initially done as like on a sort of toll road type basis.
Yeah.
Which I guess alleviates some traffic from the surface streets as well.
So I think, I don't know if people noticed it in the video, but there's no real limit to how many levels of tunnel you can have. So you can go much further deep than you can go up. The deepest mines are much deeper than the tallest buildings are tall. So you can alleviate any arbitrary level of urban congestion with the 3D tunnel network. This is a very important point. So a key rebuttal to the tunnels is that if you add 1 layer of tunnels, then that will simply alleviate congestion. It'll get used up, and then you'll be back where you started, back with congestion. But you can go to any arbitrary number of tunnels, any number of levels.
But people assume traditionally it's incredibly expensive to dig, and that would block this idea.
Yeah. Well, they're right. To give you an example, the LA subway extension, which is, I think it's a 2.5-mile extension that was just completed for $2 billion. So it's roughly $1 billion a mile to do the subway extension in LA. And this is not the highest utility subway in the world. It's quite difficult to dig tunnels normally. I think we need to have at least a 10-fold improvement in the cost per mile of tunneling.
And how could you achieve that?
I guess, actually, if you just do 2 things, you can get to approximately an order of magnitude improvement, and I think you can go beyond that. So the first thing to do is to cut the tunnel diameter by a factor of 2 or more. So a single road lane tunnel would, according to regulations, has to be 26 feet, maybe 28 feet in diameter to allow for crashes and emergency vehicles and sufficient ventilation for combustion engine cars. But if you shrink that diameter to what we're attempting, which is 12 feet, which is plenty to get an electric skate through, you drop the diameter by a factor of 2 and the cross-sectional area by a factor of 4. So, and the tunneling cost scales with the cross-sectional area. So that's roughly a half order of magnitude improvement right there. Then tunneling machines currently tunnel for half the time, then they stop, and then the rest of the time is putting in reinforcements for the tunnel wall. So if you design the machine instead to do continuous tunneling and reinforcing, that'll give you a factor of 2 improvement. Combine that and it's a factor of 8. Also, these machines are far from being at their power or thermal limit. So you can jack up the power to the machine substantially. I think you can get at least a factor of 2, maybe a factor of 4 or 5 improvements on top of that. So I think there's a fairly straightforward series of steps to get somewhere in excess of an order of magnitude improvement in the cost per mile. Our target actually is, we've got a pet snail called Gary. This is from Gary the snail from South Park. I mean, sorry, SpongeBob SquarePants. So Gary is capable currently he's capable of going 14 times faster than a tunnel boring machine. Okay.
You want to beat Gary?
We want to beat Gary. Yeah. He's not a patient little fellow, and we want that will be victory. Victory is beating the snail.
But a lot of people dreaming about future cities.
That's one word that I always want to say to everybody in my life now. That word is life is easy. It's so easy and fun. Before that, I never think like that. When I was in Bangkok, I feel like life is very hard, very complicated. I was born in a poor village from the northeastern of Thailand. When I was a kid, everything is fun and easy. But when the TV came, many people came to the village, they said, you are poor. You need to follow succeed for your life. You need to go to Bangkok to pursue success in your life. So I feel bad, I feel poor. So I need to go to Bangkok. When I went to Bangkok, it's not very fun. I said, you need to learn, study a lot, and work very hard, and then you will get success. I work very hard, 8 hours per day at least. But what I can eat is just a bowl of noodle per meal, or sometimes a dish of fried rice or something like that. And where I stay is very bad. A small room with a lot of people sleep. It's very hot. I start to question a lot. When I work hard, why my life is so hard? It must be something wrong, because I produce a lot of things, but I cannot get enough. And I try to learn, I try to study. I try to study in university. It's very hard to learn in university, because it's very boring. And I start to look at the subject in university. Every faculty, most of them is destructive knowledge. It's no productive knowledge in university for me. When I look at something like if you learn to be architect or engineer, that means you ruin more. The more these people work, the mountain will be destroyed more. And the good land in Chao Phraya Basin will be covered with concrete more and more. We destroy more. If we learn agricultural faculty or something like that, that means you learn how to poison, to toxicate the land, the water, and learn to destroy everything. I feel like everything we do is so complicated, so hard, and everything, we just make it hard. Life is so hard. I feel disappointed. I start to think about why I have to be here in Bangkok. I thought about when I was a kid. Nobody worked 8 hours per day. Everybody worked 2 hours, 2 months a year. Planting rice 1 month and harvest the rice another month. The rest is free time, 10 months of free time. That's why people have so many festivals in Thailand. Every month they have festival. Because they have so much free time. And then in the daytime, everybody will take a nap. Even now in Laos, if anybody go to Laos, people take a nap after lunch. And after they wake up, they're just gossiping. How's your son-in-law? How's your daughter-in-law? That's people have a lot of time. But at that time, because of they have a lot of time, they have time to be with themselves. And when they have time to be with themselves, they have time to understand themselves. When they understand themselves, they can see what they want in their life. So many people see that they want happiness. They want love. They want to enjoy their life. So people see a lot of beauty in their life. So they express their beauty in many ways. Some people just carving the handle of the knife, very beautiful. The basket, they're weaving very nice. But now nobody uses that word. Nobody can do something like that. People use plastic everywhere. So I feel like it's something wrong in there. I cannot live in this way of living. So I decided to quit university and went back home. When I went back home, I started to live like when I remember when I was a kid. I started to work 2 months a year. I got 4 tons of rice. And then the whole family, 6 people, we eat less than half a ton per year. So we can sell some rice. And then I dug 2 fish pond. We have fish to eat all year round. And I started a small garden, less than half an acre. And I spent 15 minutes per day to take care of the garden. I have more than 30 varieties of vegetable in the garden. So 6 people cannot eat all of it. We have surplus to sell in the market. We can make some income in there too. So I feel like it's easy. Why I have to be in Bangkok for 7 years, working hard and then don't have enough to eat? But here, only 2 months a year and 15 minutes per day, I can feed 6 people. That's easy. And after that, before that, I think that stupid people like me, who never get a good grade in the school, cannot have a house. Because people who clever than me, who get number 1 in the class every year, even they get a good job, but they need to work more than 30 years to have a house. But for me, who cannot finish university, how can I have a house? Hopeless for people who have low education like me. But when I start to do earthen building, it's so easy. I spend 2 hours per day, 5 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the morning. 2 hours per day. And 3 months, I got a house. And another friend who was the most clever in the class, he spent 3 months to build his house too, but he had to be in debt. He had to pay his debt 30 years. So compared to him, I have 29 years and 10 months of free time. So I feel that life is so easy. I never think I can build a house easy like that. And after that, I keep building house every year, at least 1 house a year. Now I have no money, but I have many houses. My problem is tonight, which house I will go to sleep. So house is not a problem. Anybody can build a house. The kids 13 years old, after school, they make bricks together, make a house. After 1 month, they have a library. The kids can make a house. A very old nun can build a hut for herself. Many people can build a house. So it's easy. If you don't believe me, try it. If somebody wants to have a house. And then the next thing is clothing. I feel like I'm poor. I feel like I'm not handsome. I try to dress like somebody else, like a movie star, to make myself look good, look better. I spend 1 month to save money to buy a pair of jeans. When I wear it, I turn left and turn right, look at the mirror. Every time I look, I'm the same person. The most expensive pants cannot change my life. I feel like I'm so crazy. Why I have to buy it? Spend 1 month to have a pair of pants. It doesn't change me. I start to think more about that. Why we need to follow fashion? Because when we follow fashion, we never catch up with it because we follow it. So don't follow it, just stay here. Do use what we have. So after that, until now, 20 years, I never buy any clothes. All the clothes I have is leftover from people. When people come to visit me, when they leave, they left a lot of clothes there. So I have tons of clothes now. And then when people see me wear very old clothes, they give me more clothes. So my problem is I need to give clothes to people very often now. So it's so easy. And when I stop buying clothes, I feel like it's not only clothes, it's about something else in my life. I need to, what I learned is when I buy something, everything about, I buy it because I like it, or I buy it because I need it. So if I buy it because I like it, that means I'm wrong. So I feel more free when I think like this. And the last thing is, when I get sick, what will I do? I really worry in the beginning because when I have no money, what I will do. But I start to contemplate more. Normally, sickness is a normal thing. It's not a bad thing. Sickness is something to remind us that we did something wrong in my life. That's why we get sick. So when we get sick, I need to stop and come back to myself and think about it. What I did wrong. So I learned how to use water to heal myself, how to use earth to heal myself. I learned how to use basic knowledge to help myself. So after I rely on myself, this 4 things, I feel like life is very easy. I feel something like a freedom or something that I feel free. I feel like I don't worry about anything much. I have less fear. I can do whatever I want in my life. Before that, I have a lot of fear. I cannot do anything. But now I feel very fear. I feel like I'm a unique person on this earth. Nobody like me. I don't need to make myself like anybody else. I'm the number one. So things like this make it easy, very light. And after that, I start to think about when I was in Bangkok, I feel very